Alright, if you've never done a clutch before, it's fairly straightforward. You have the flywheel, which should not have all those spots on it. Those are heat spots where it's gotten too hot. It's actually gotten really hot wherever those spots are. As you can see, there's some grease and dirt and stuff. I'll show you the grease and dirt right there. You'll need to clean that very, very, very well with brake cleaner. Kind of brake cleaner, you know, whatever you got around. Whatever brand you prefer. Doesn't really matter. As long as it's brake cleaner, anything will work. No dust, no grease. Mainly no grease. No grease, no grease, no grease. You do have to put grease on some of these parts. This is a throwout bearing right here. It's an actual bearing. This center part rolls on rollers in this little housing here. This clips onto the fork. This is the tool they give you to install the clutch. It basically goes in the middle there after going through this. I'll show you that here in a minute. But anyway, what you're going to do is, this is the actual clutch. There's a flat side and there's a raised side. The raised side goes into the pressure plate like that. Sits nice and flat. This will sit flat on your flywheel there. And this whole thing is going to go and sit up against the engine like that. It's going to bolt up there. So anyway, what you do is you take this and you hold it up there, and then you stick this through there and put it in there, and that holds that clutch disc up there while you take the pressure plate. There's a hole in the middle, goes over that whole shaft, and it goes and sits over the tool and over the clutch disc and everything. And then you just put bolts in the pressure plate there, these little 10mm bolts, and you basically finger tighten them just down while holding the thing flush, holding the pressure plate flush. You want it to be flat. You just touch it, like put in the top one until it just touches, and then keep holding it flat, put in a bottom one, and then work your way around until they all touch. And then you want to count the number of turns. You don't want to turn them too many at any one time. You're basically going to go to the top, and you're going to turn it like one turn or two turns maybe. Go to the bottom, 2 turns, and work your way around, you know, 2 turns at a time until you get them all the way snug. And what that's going to do is, there's actually a disc on the inside of this pressure plate here. This disc here is going to sit on the clutch long before the bolts ever bottom out as you're tightening it. So basically, you're going to set this thing on there, and your bolts are going to be sticking out, but they're going to be touching. And as you pull it down, this disc is actually sitting on these fingers here, and these fingers are little wedges, fulcrums, they're little bars, and they're sprung, really, really stiff springs. And as you tighten down the housing of this thing, it pushes down on the pressure plate against the clutch, and squeezes those springs, and those springs will actually get will come in toward the engine and get compressed. And so basically, this whole thing is going to compress in like this. And the way that this works is your throwout bearing sits right here in the transmission, and when you push the clutch fork, it actually smashes those springs down, and smashing those springs down lifts that plate off the clutch and lets it go, only while you're holding down on that throwout bearing. So what you're going to see is, you're going to see these gaps here, which are all equal. You're going to see, as you tighten it down, these gaps are going to get smaller and smaller as it pre-compresses that pressure plate. And you want to go back and measure these. You want to measure them across from each other, make sure that they're all the same distance apart. If that's true, then you know, you've gotten it down and it's down correctly. If it's not, you've probably broken it by warping the spring, by warping one of these things, by tightening it down unevenly. And you'll tighten it down like this, and then when you go to tighten this side down, it actually like warps the spring, and so this side will be a little bit bigger than this side. So you really want to pull it down nice and even, just a little bit at a time, by tightening one side then the other, you know, and just kind of work it down until it's fully compressed. Anyway, I have this thing stuck in here, going into where the starter goes, because that's the block. Down here is the oil pan, and I wouldn't really wedge anything in there. I don't want to put too much pressure on. It'd probably be okay, but really I'd rather do it up here. against the block. You know, it's all aluminum anyway, so you got to kind of be careful. But anyway, that's about it. Now, in here is a little pilot bushing, they call it, little pilot bushing. This kit actually comes with a replacement. It's right here. You know, you can get a slide hammer or something and pull that out of there. A slide hammer is basically like a little tooth. The tooth kind of gets on the other side of that thing, and it has a slidable weight. And when you slide it to it's a bar with a tooth. So the bar goes in here and hooks, and then around the bar you have a weight, and the weight slides out until it hits the end, and the end stops it. So you kind of like slam it out. When it hits the end, it grabs and kind of yanks on that thing, and it'll pop it out of there. It's not a real crucial thing, and it doesn't really, you know, take much load. There's a little bit of, you know, cross-axle load, but there's a big bearing in the transmission whose job it is to take all that load. So that bushing doesn't really do a whole lot for you, and I'm not going to replace mine. I've used this one 2 or 3 times, and I'm not really worried about it. You know, if you have the tool, if I had the tool, I would go ahead and do it, but I don't have a slide hammer here, so I'm not going to do mine. Anyway, I'll take another picture when I get the clutch on.